Excellent. We are now live. We have joined or started a minute early, as we normally do, so that everybody can get themselves settled in. And depending where you are in the world, get your beverage of choice, be it a hot cocoa or a fresh orange juice, or your first coffee of the morning, to be able to join us for this webinar where we'll be talking to Candice, and we'll be looking at finding your authentic contribution in the age of AI. So it's wonderful to see people joining us. It's very interesting because we are, and I've just done a quick Google here, from the office here in Comberton, Cambridge, to Candice's office in Auckland, New Zealand. It is exactly 11,340 miles. So we really are stretching the globalization, I suppose, of Belbin here. We're at two completely different, well, we're a long way away from each other. And we're just so delighted that we've managed to find a time where neither of us are in our PJs. And we can benefit from the wisdom and, I would say, the curious mind of Candice. So what I'd love you to do, if you're joining us, is to thank you, Gary. You already know the score. You've been on a webinar before. If you could just go into the comment section and just say hello and tell us where you're joining us from. At the moment, we have Gary there. Thank you, Gary, from a very snowy Dorset. I hope it's not too snowy, Gary. I've got a really early morning trip tomorrow. I've got to get to Gatwick. I'm leaving at 4:45, so I hope it's not too bad down there. Hi, Bruce. Lovely to see you. Bruce is joining us from Auckland. So we've already got Dorset and Auckland. That's amazing, isn't it? Absolutely incredible. So thank you so much for joining us. Okay. I know that Candice has got so much to share, so I'm going to stop the preamble. I'm going to stop all this now. If you would like to just write comments as we go through, it would be wonderful for you to share that. Excellent. Roberto, hello, lovely to see you again from Spain. Oh my goodness, that's incredible, isn't it? So we've got the UK, Spain and New Zealand with us today. Thank you so much. Now, because there are 11,340 miles between us, and because we are talking about AI and technology, we have found that there is a little bit of a delay in between Candice and I being able to have a conversation. So we hope it doesn't impact too much on this webinar, but for once, I am going to be a little bit quiet to make sure that the flow doesn't get disturbed too much. Hello, Adam, joining us from Southeast London. Lovely to see you. Thank you. So let's officially open this webinar. Lovely to meet you. Good evening to those in the UK. Good morning to those in New Zealand. My name is Jo Keeler and I'm the Managing Director here at Belbin. We're going to spend the next 45 minutes to an hour or so talking to Candice. Candice Collier is the Managing Director of teamhub in New Zealand and also known as Belbin New Zealand. That's how we know Candice best. And we've been working with Candice for many years to help her bring the language of Belbin to New Zealand. Now, Candice spoke at a recent conference that we had in July, looking exactly at this, about looking at finding that authenticity, that authentic voice in this age of AI. And we loved the workshop so much, we want to share it with more people, which is why we have invited her to join us today. Got so much to talk about. We've already been on this call for an hour and we've just been chatting away about it because there's just so much to talk about. There's so much to explore. If you've got curious minds, you're going to love this. Thank you, Gary, for reminding me, by the way. Yes, this is automatically being recorded and you will be sent a recording via StreamYard the second I press the end stream button. So don't worry, you don't need to take notes, just enjoy it. Get your cocoa, Gary, and you'll be able to enjoy the webinar. And hello, Sylvia from New York. There we go. New York, London, Spain and Auckland. That's pretty impressive. And hello, Lorraine. You're also from a sunny Auckland. Wonderful. So Candice, would you like to introduce yourself a bit more and then we'll start the webinar in full. Over to you.
Well, kia ora from New Zealand. Thank you very much for the introduction, Jo. And it's so wonderful to see the global community here on our webinar. This is my first ever webinar, Jo. So hopefully my curiosity and my thoughts are shared, and there's some great conversation that we can get through this eventually as technology works through. So I originated in the UK. That's where I was born, but I've spent the last 20 years of my life in the beautiful part of the world that is New Zealand, and really just spent most of my career either, connecting people. So a lot of my work has been in the people experience and customer experience space. I love problem solving. I love looking at complex, wicked problems and kind of getting people together. A lot of my background has been around really just kind of how we solve things as humans in the most effective way. My team role from a Belbin perspective is resource investigator, coordinator, plant. So my natural tendency is to be in the ideas, curiosity, and connecting with people's space. And I know that there's a lot of people out there who are far more experienced and knowledgeable in the world of AI. But the thing that I wanted to bring to this conversation today is just something that's been in my head for the last year or so, which is how do we be our authentic human selves with all of this change and technology that's starting to creep into our lives and our workplaces. I really do think it's genuinely one of the most important conversations that we can have right now. And I'm really excited to share some thoughts and also just some strategies around how we can really connect and be more human in this complex world that we're in at the moment. So thank you for the introduction.
Delighted, Candice, and we're so delighted that you're with us. And I love the fact that you've put there, it's your curiosity really which is driving the work that you're doing, that's driving the questions that you're asking, and shaping the responses and shaping your understanding of the subject. It's really refreshing for you to say that's your take on this. It's the curiosity, it's that resource investigator, isn't it? It's that turning every stone over and asking all those questions. So I'm going to start with the first question this evening. Is that we do hear so much, don't we, about AI taking over tasks and even jobs, but also about its potential to create entirely new opportunities. What is your take on how AI is shaping the future of work?
Great question, Joe. Look, it is a fascinating time, and on one hand, we're seeing this sort of dual transformation, I like to call it, where AI is transforming and emerging tech. So there's different technologies out there, and it's transforming how we work. It's connecting us like never before. As a peer reviewer in my work a lot, definitely adding value to what I do. But there's a lot of other challenges that are happening in society, and the trick is finding the balance between embracing technology but also staying connected to the human aspects of work and leveraging the growth and the diversity. And living here in New Zealand, there's been a really wonderful observation around how rich values and culture sits within our workspaces. There's a lot of conversation at the moment about how we can, be better culturally aware. But there's also lots of cognitive diversity as well. So I'll touch a little bit on, this sort of dual thing around super diversity, cognitive, neurodiversity. So this other complexity that's happening. We've got technology on one hand, which is really hopefully going to, remove some of those tasks, repetitive things that we do, the things that we do rely on some parts of our brain to do. But actually, how do we then embrace those diverse, those authentic contributions that we can provide in a human context? And so, living here, and I'd love anyone from the New Zealand cohort that's on this call to share just some of those opportunities that we're seeing around, embracing the innovation around diversity, and how do we use technology to not be the friction, but to really kind of work through that and collaborate. There's a quote from this I saw, and as a resource investigator, I curate a lot of other people's ideas, not ashamed to share. But yeah, she kind of hit. Look, AI, as we know, is going to be a potentially game changer, and we hear a lot of excitement around that. It's going to be brilliant at handling tasks, for housing. So in the HR and L&D learning, it's an opportunity. Industries are using it well. But I think one of the important things, instructing, I don't like to do, that would be amazing.
Candice,
and so Joanna, I want to so that I can do. Have we lost?
We've lost you a little bit, Candice. Yeah, it's I'll just maybe it just needs to catch up a little bit. It's a long way away. It's absolutely fine. I really love this quote. I want AI to do my laundry and dishes so that I can do art and writing, not for AI to do my art and writing so that I can do my laundry and dishes. I think this is perfect. This sums up really sometimes what I feel about AI, is that I want AI to take over my spreadsheets. I want AI to do all this really repetitive work, which I, as a non-completed finisher implementer, I'm not really geared up for that. So that's where I want AI to take over for myself. But I know that if it took over what I'm doing now, I'd be devastated, because that's not the part of my job that I want to give to anybody else. So this quote, I think, really sums it up for me. It's what we need to be exploring and what this conversation needs to be about. Back over to you.
Oh, am I back? Sorry.
You're back.
So yeah, one of the opportunities then, thanks Joe, is to think about, so this next question here I'd like to put out to you all, because when we think about tech and the changes that are happening in our workplace and in our lives, how can we think about our personal contribution? What is the most authentic thing that we can feel connected to really work alongside AI and the emerging tech? So thinking about, I guess, what main areas in terms of your own, if you have an understanding of your strengths, often that self-awareness piece can be missing in some of our understanding of what we do. We get hired to do a particular skill, but actually how are we all feeling about this change? Is it something we'll embrace full on? Are we a bit, and I'd love anyone in the chat to share if they are a particular team role. From my perspective, being a resource investigator, I'm hugely excited about this potential for innovation that it can bring, but also there's an element of there's so much out there, and so what do I focus on, and who do I talk to get the most insightful way of which I can use it, and so it can feel quite overwhelming. But if you are someone who works in more of a detail-orientated role, like a completer finisher, say, or an implementer who's very good at setting their own tasks and knowing when to do things, and then you've got this potential threat, if you like, of a tool that could be brought into your workplace, how is that at all impacting your thought around how you do your work? Will it enhance what I do? and so how and is that going to be a friction in terms of my own sense of self? And so again, that authenticity around having understanding of myself and the skills and the opportunities that I will need to drive the innovation that is. I'm assuming you can still hear me, Jo. Is this all clear?
No, it is all clear. It's a little bit, but do you know that's absolutely okay. And I think you've raised a really important thing is how are we feeling about these emerging technologies? Because we're all different. And therefore, how we're feeling about this change is going to depend on us and our strengths, as you said, our weaknesses. How do we feel about it? I know, and I said before, I was at a conference and there was a lot of people who were very scared about the AI piece. And there was a futurologist talking about AI. And she said, if you're scared that AI is going to take your job, you're right. But if you feel that AI is going to embrace it and help you with your job, you're also right. So I think what we need to do is work out which bits of our job that we feel that we can, or not give up, but allow something else to enhance, and which bits actually we're not so happy with. I don't know if anybody's got any contributions they'd like to make. I'd like to know, for example, you and I are very similar, Candice. We both have resource investigator quite high. We like to explore new, but how is it for people who have other team roles? How are you feeling about it? I'd like to know what our accountants are feeling about it, actually. I'd like to know sometimes what Tracy and our marketing department is thinking about it. Because I tell you what, when you ask Chat GPT to do some ad copy, it's blinking good. It's not perfect. You can't copy and paste, but you can really use it to enhance what you're already doing. So it'd be really interesting if anybody else is feeling a certain way about how AI and other emerging technologies is going to reshape that. Perhaps everybody should think about it, and as it comes to you, write it down in the chat. I'd be really, really interested. Back to you, Candice.
Thanks, Jo. So just thinking about the dual role that we're going to see in our workplaces and our lives. What is it that technology does for humans, and what is it that humans can do for technology? So at the conference, I had an opportunity to be a little bit more creative because we were in a workshop environment, and I split the workshop participants down. So there was team robot and team human, and they all got a chance to kind of connect with each other and talk around the contribution that they each bring to the party. And so technology and a lot of people obviously were kind of on the same page in terms of the robot team was actually quite quite easy, but the human bit was actually quite interesting. So I'll just focusing on what technology brings, a way to handle your routine tasks more efficiently, quicker to you. I can enhance your give you some data that can be seconds in terms of delivering this wonderful, if we're thinking about broadly, augmented reality. There's some real amazing things that are happening in that space to really help you connect. And there's, if you're in the learning space or the building learning experiences space, there's some really amazing things that we can actually use AR for to connect and provide some scenarios, for example, conflict resolution kind of training. There's some cool things that I'm starting to see here in New Zealand. Love to hear anything globally, how we're using AR to actually bring some of that more human and immersive training someone and optimizing workspaces and different things. So the role of a human then, if technology is doing all of this, and obviously what we bring is this ability. We're creative, but and we have origination, and we can obviously help drive some of that insight and new ways of doing things. And obviously technology is here because of human. But the big one is, I guess, the soft skill, which is often roller for some organizations. It's not always the thing that we focus on, and we invest in. But there is a trend that I'm starting to see here in New Zealand, which is really wonderful, which is this need for a lot more emotional intelligence and empathy and ability to collaborate. So we're starting to kind of venture into what are the core human skills for an AI and an emerging tech kind of workforce. And obviously we've got this beautiful approach to how we want to continuously learn and adapt as humans. And so we're starting to see adaptability and this sort of sense of resilience and being able to kind of understand how we can work through change. And that's the beauty of the human skill, that we can connect our sort of and collaborate alongside with technology. Some future of work trends that I've started to sort of be quite fascinated with is, and I've only just seen this, by the way, so I don't know a lot about it, but there's a conversation around people experience as a product. Not people as a product, people experience as a product. And that's about really intentionally designing workplaces that has the human, the soft skills at the heart of how they do their work. And I'll talk a little bit around, that really connecting with diverse ways of thinking. Are we really, hiring for skill, not just job description? Are we building a curious and continuous learning culture in our workplaces? So personalized learning experiences. So again, AI will be an amazing enabler for career development and upskilling. So being able to, serve up, based on what it knows about you and how you operate in your work environment. We can actually sort of now have some amazing tools that can do that. Purpose-driven organizations, so companies who are really focused on aligning employee work with impacts that are happening around in society. So the next sort of 20 to 30 years, our population is going to be of the workforce is going to be young. Maori, Pacifica, there's a huge movement here just in terms of sort of cultural roots. It's starting to get a lot more traction in terms of uniting and how do we bring that collective thought together. Our young people are our future of the workforce, but for a bit longer, so those experiences coming through. And so how do we have more agility in how we hire and develop people based on their skill, not necessarily tenure or what I've been doing for the last sort of 20 years. So replacing rigidity and being able to embrace adaptability is where I see the future of work and where technology and human can kind of partner.
Thank you, Candice. I think that's it's quite an important element, isn't it? The future. What does that bring? Is the CV of hard skills, of technical skills, going to be a thing of the past? Is it something that we're not going to be so interested in anymore, and it's more the human that we need to come across on our CVs? It's really interesting to see how that may develop. I'm just going to show you. Bruce, thank you very much for sharing. When you asked about how people were feeling about AI, Bruce has said that it's the biggest tool he uses now. It helps him to write. It speeds up hugely the capture and summarizes the clutter in my head. I get you, Bruce. I really do. That's something that I know a lot of people use it for. There's so much going on. Isn't it wonderful to find a tool that allows us to put into bullet points? We also have another piece of feedback here. Let me just see if I can show that from Lorraine. In the financial advice space, I see AI summarizing our client conversations succinctly after we've had a great meeting with them. That's the time-consuming task when we get back to the office, that very admin focus instead of being the exhilaration. Do you know, I'm with you, Lorraine, on that. How many times have you come out of a meeting completely buoyed up and then gone, oh, I said I'd summarize that and send that by close of play today. And all that joy just gets sucked out, doesn't it? I love the way that you've done that. Candice, would you like to comment on that?
Hi team. Hi Lorraine. It's so good to see you. I do know Lorraine very well. Amazing. And Bruce, the old Kiwi contingent. Look, I've been in many. So Microsoft Teams. I don't know if anyone knows this, but if you're in a meeting, and you just there's an AI basic meeting bullet points. If you just tell it, I need some clear actions based on this meeting. So if you're recording it, and it's got a transcript, so you can pull the transcript, put it into ChatGPT, and ask it to basically bullet point some actions out of that. So and it's freed up, I would say, about an hour of my time, because Joe, I'm similar. I have so much enthusiasm in meetings, and the biggest risk for me is forgetting to follow up, and so that ability just to remove that moment so I can have slightly longer to go and have that conversation with someone else after that session. But yeah, it's brilliant. And so so AI can be our efficiency partner. But if I can just, I don't know, Joe, did you want to talk a little bit about this? How, this kind of embedding it a little bit more in terms of how the human element.
Well, I think over to you there, really, Candice, because it's this wonderful balancing act, isn't it? It really is. I mean, we're talking about humans, we're talking about technology. I mean, how about from a team perspective, the diversity perspective? I mean, what skills do you think are important? I'm not sure. There's so many questions to ask here, isn't there?
One of the things, yes, I've been obviously thinking a lot about this. We talk a lot about the in people being, who invest observing, and I've heard about, so I had to go and investigate this one a bit more. Gap between, because not everyone is naturally a good communicator, not everyone is naturally empathic. Again, we have got people on different neurodivergence, in terms of our cognitive approach to how we connect with humans. So we can't assume that everyone is just going to be human and do it really, really well, which sounds a bit strange, because what we've done is actually we probably have lent a little bit into, and some people feel quite comfortable, and I think we saw this during COVID. Actually some I mean, I found it horrendous because I couldn't see or talk or connect with someone in person, and it really kind of sort of impacted me in a different way. But actually some people really thought, finally, I can sit and do my work without getting any interruptions, and technology has been a great enabler for that. So what potentially might have happened, or starting to happen, is we're starting to see this kind of, okay, with technology is going to do all of the stuff that has required, I don't know, a designer to spend 4 hours to edit a video, and actually that's going to be removed quite quickly when we bring all these new wonderful AI tools in the learning space, for example. Is there actually this divide in terms of someone being able to excel in areas where they might not have had some training around soft skills? And I've worked in the financial services industry for 15 years, and it's been very heavily focused on training around technical skills, But I am seeing a shift now around saying, we actually need, yes, we've got meeting preparation templates when we talk to our customers, but actually we need some guidance and support around actually how to have a conversation. And so can we have some soft skills training? And there's a lot of, obviously, there's some great tools out there. So AI experience tools around, like LinkedIn Learning and Better Up. I don't know if anyone's heard of those. LinkedIn Learning obviously can serve some really great learning modules and bite-sized learning. And I was looking the other day, if I can just refer to my notes, where the most popular courses are essentials of team collaboration, unconscious bias, communicating with confidence, and critical thinking and curiosity, and emotional intelligence. So if those are the most, and I think because possibly very smart people and people are feeling, if these are going to be the key human skills in the future, emotional intelligence, creativity, critical thinking, community better at this, because this is actually going to be something that employers are going to be looking for. So that's been an interesting shift in terms of noting that as much as we've got people saying, I don't have the access to the digital technologies, and that I feel like there's going to be an opportunity to also for leaders to be intentional, and for workplaces to be intentional, organizations to really think about how do we really upskill in those soft skills, and making our is going to support us in that role as well. So really keen for anyone's thoughts around that. And I think when we think about teams or people and individuals that may be struggling with where do I start with understanding my soft skills, the first place to start with, and I think most of the people on the call, if they're Belbin advocates, around that self. And that's where I sort of always come back to when I talk to my clients and people around, that authenticity space. We're all just trying to sort of figure out who we are, contribute. And I think that's the bit that we need to get more intentional on. And it does take practice to be authentically yourself. And I had this midway through my career where that wasn't really being true to myself, but I thought it was going to make me a lot of money, or it did is actually sent me the other way. And it took an opportunity where I met, quite useful for my self-awareness, and it might help you, with understanding your strengths. And I was like, oh, okay, I've never really thought about it in that way. But and so what it did is it actually gave me a language and an opportunity to. So I went from being someone who did very detailed work in Excel spreadsheets. It was like the role, because I loved the opportunity to be creative. That's what I love about marketing.
We're losing you a little
that
bit
people
again.
want, and that consumer and that psychology of people, and so for me, okay.
So I don't know if everybody else is having a few problems hearing Candice just there. It just cut out a little bit. And I think what you're saying here is that for what we need to do, we need to harness this technology, but we need to stay human. We need to focus on those soft skills. But of course, those soft skills aren't the same for everybody. It needs to start with you, and with all of this work that we do, it starts with self. And it says, what is it that I actually enjoy doing? What is it that I'm good at? What can I build upon? And where are my skill gaps, but not from a hard skill, but from a soft skills point of view? And really, if we're going to be better humans, that's the area of which we need to start developing and start improving, as opposed to feeling scared that something is taking something away. This actually enables us and gives us the time and space to be better on the human side of things. So actually, one could argue that we're becoming more human.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you now, yes.
Joe, I was talking to being a resource investigator, I've curated this from, I've seen it. I really want to read it, but I don't have a lot of time to do reading. I'm a mother of two young boys, and I work quite hard during the day. And so at night, usually I just want to drop my head on the pillow. But ChatGPT has helped me just summarize this. This is a really cool book that if, and I will be honest, I will want to read it myself. But if you are looking for a little bit of inspiration, this guy, Douglas Rushkoff, if you've ever heard of him, he's an author and documentarian, and he studies human autonomy in a digital age, which is quite cool. Now, what he's observed, and possibly some people, around the world are starting to feel it too, is that we've come a little bit isolated from each other and a little bit repressed. Sometimes we can feel repressed by technologies, and there's a lot of media and social media that's kind of feeling like is kind of encroaching in our world. And so what he's basically saying is we need a manifesto for being team human, connecting personally in this tech dominated world. And so he's urging us to do this, but to do it as a team. So he's calling it team human. He said being human isn't something that we can do as individuals on our own. So we shouldn't be sat alone trying to figure this stuff out. We need to embrace each other's, again, it's that connection, that diversity, being really open and listening. Instead of texting someone, be intentional and go and meet with them and have a coffee. And again, it's really just, post-COVID era as well. We've all sort of been like, oh, how do we get back into this? But yeah, it's making sure that I guess we don't get overrun by this technology that could potentially be seen as getting in our way, and really being open to improving ourselves as individuals, and as humans. So yeah, he's basically saying, look, join Team Human, which means, prioritizing the social, transcending a digital inclination, and connecting more as human beings. So I will read this possibly over the summer period, just to get a little bit more insight. But again, love anyone's thoughts if they've ever read this one. But I really love that thing around being human is a team sport, and that's something that I'm quite, passionate about as a human, and that's why I'm here today, is how can I bring this conversation and encourage others, and I will make an effort to be more present, and also have more coffees with people as well.
I think that's really important, Candice, isn't it, what you've just said there? Would you say that teams are going to become more important, actually, because we are able to start making those connections to a sort of like a deeper level? When we embrace AI, we've actually got more time to be able to support one another within the team. Do you think that's, part of it, is that therefore being able to communicate well within the team, to be able to know who's in the team, etc., becomes more important in this world of AI?
Absolutely. I think I think teams will be the essence and that continuity, if you like, in all the chaos. I don't know if last time I was in a very complex workplace, it is the team that is the thing around you that keeps you going. Of team with us, we are workplace, sometimes where we move around, and so there's teams of teams, so we're always connecting with different people. But I think, yeah, that's absolutely critical, is the people continuity piece around, if we are becoming more intentional, creating environments where they see that as the most important thing, is how do we make sure our people feel safe, So that's all, the essence around, great teams is the safety piece, the trust, and the space where people can really be themselves. And for really, really great leaders, and I've had a few in my time who have been really cognizant of the power of creating space and to be able to listen to those diverse perspectives. So again, being good at being in a team actually takes effort, and then how do we measure that? And that's actually something that we don't do particularly well. I think lots of people feel that they have a good team culture, but actually, how do we know we're actually really great at being in a team? And I think that's where a lot of potentially opportunities lie with using AI, for example, to help inform actually what, how do we know we've got this team stuff and going well and working for us? How are we connecting? So we've obviously are in a world of globalized workforces as well, and remote, co-locations, different people connecting. So again, are we using AI or tools, tech tools to really make genuine connections with our teams, and not just see, remote as being a challenge, but actually embracing technology in that environment for people to connect genuinely. And that is quite problematic and challenging for some. And obviously, if you've got delays, global connections like we have, how do we, bring more of that human side of this conversation, which we're trying to do.
Look, we're human,
But
Candice.
absent in the
What
future.
else, We're human. This is human. I just actually just like to just put, if I could just put John's comment on, it's just come in. For those of you who don't want to read books, John O'Boyle's mentioned that the person you were speaking about before, Candice, he's also got a podcast. To me, that sounds perfect. You can catch up on little bits of a podcast without having to read the whole book. So so all of you resource investigators out there, thank you for sharing that, John. That's really appreciated. So how does Belbin fit in with all this, Candice?
Thanks. Yeah, let's get into a little bit of Belbin. I'm assuming most people on the call have either heard of, been introduced to it in some way. For me, it's as simple as how do we find distribution? And that's what it did for me. And that's every time I meet with someone who has never really heard of Belbin, and what it can do for me is in New Zealand, we have an incredibly beautiful if I can just share whanaotonga, which is around relations, manaakitanga community, and for me, Belbin really sits in that art of being human, and that.
Oh, Candice seems to have left us. I know we were struggling a little bit there with the internet connection. And I thought that was quite ironic, really, in the fact that we are talking about AI and we're talking about technology, but actually it's really important that we don't rely solely on it, because we never know when it's going to let us down. We never know when actually being human is more important. So I'm just going to get Candice back here. Let's see if we can get back
Hi.
there. Hi there. Hi, we've found you again. Let's go through your slides. Let's get to where you were there. Here we go. You're there perfectly. Brilliant. You were talking about the beauty of the language within New Zealand that really you think encapsulates this element of being human and being with one another and to be face to face.
I'm so sorry. I don't know how much you heard. But yeah, so some practical ways that Belbin can be used. And I think it's an opportunity for teams and for individuals to gain an understanding around their strengths and align the team of the work, which I think has been quite useful in terms of let's focus on the work. And I think it's about taking often, the emotion out of what it is that we're doing. And it is a tool for conflict and moving teams through difficult times. But for me, it's around, how do we foster and that more empathic and appreciation of each other's contribution. And it really delves into, obviously individual strengths and aligning them with each other's, contributions that's aligned to the work that we're here to do. So making sure that you're building teams that have got complementary skills. Facilitating it's a tool for facilitating conversations. Where are we at? What's our working models? Let's fundamental for any team is to build trust. I've worked in many project teams where if we didn't do that at the beginning and we didn't have what we call in Agile, for example, I did a lot of that at the bank. If we didn't have these team rituals where we kind of did retros and looked at conversations around how we worked together in the last couple of weeks, an opportunity to share, the and the opportunities that came through that, but also some of those challenges and what happened. Belbin kind of sits really beautifully in any of those kind of team conversations where we actually get a chance to kind of reflect on where we can. The other opportunity I see with Belbin in the world of AI coming through is we can use it to, really kind of get some data quite quickly, use those insights. But also, how do we optimize workflows? So how do we get more efficient? So I really like working with project teams, for example, with Belbin around workflow efficiencies. How do we get things through quicker by using more balanced teams? So creating, those balanced teams is obviously the essence of what Belbin's doing, but also just understanding each other's styles. And again, it's just around that clarity piece. For me, when we always start any Belbin session, it's understanding, from a team perspective, are they all aligned? Is there clarity of purpose of a team, and how does everyone feel around being able to speak up and take risks? So those foundations around trust building, getting aligned, having clear roles defined, and being able to sort of be cognizant around each other's skills and contribution has been really quite critical, I see. And again, if I can just reflect on, some of the changes that are happening around. Now, there's this thing that we talk a lot about here in New Zealand around super diversity. Now, super diversity is where we are going to have in the next, and it's happening now, but we're going to, in the next 20 years, have a lot more culturally diverse teams. Generationally, I think there's 5 generations in the workplace at the moment. So again, lots of potential learnings from each other, and how we can also be aware of the cognitive diversity as well. And there's certainly a lot more sort of coming through in terms of understanding around these beautiful neurodivergent individuals that are sitting within our workplaces. How do we harness their systems thinking? Because a lot can bring some exceptional strengths in areas that require a lot of attention to detail. That they're sitting there at the moment, probably being the unsung heroes of organizations, but how do we bring that inclusive environment to the forefront, and how do we make these contributions, these authentic being myself contributions, a game-changing asset for organizations. So it's really what is thrilling me in terms of the opportunities to really lead your organization. And I would say some practical tips for any leader kind of thinking, well, how do I start with all of this, is really investing in that cultural intelligence training, now they call it. There's a lot of, I don't know if that's happening over globally in the UK, but that's around how do we navigate different communication styles and values. Are we really aware of each other's approaches that we might need to include in how we work? Are we designing inclusive systems? So are we offering different ways to communicate with each other? Because we've got different members of the teams that could be thinking differently, and they communicate differently, and they can't attend brainstorming sessions for because they like to do a lot more kind of considered thinking. How are we designing our work and our systems around our work that can actually really drive that? And then how do we foster empathy, which is using tools like Belbin to build that understanding and appreciation for different strengths. So that is a challenge. That is an opportunity, and that is that kind of dual transformation that I was referring to earlier, which is, yes, technology is the thing that seems to be talked a lot about, and we've got leaders going, I need to get genned up on all this Gen I stuff, and how do I get better at this? I would like to then throw out an opportunity for leaders of organizations to how do we build lifelong learning cultures where we're continuously striving to be better at being human.
I think you've summed that up beautifully. How do we help leaders help people become more human? How can we develop, how can we make sure that we have this growth mindset? So I think if we don't have that growth mindset, that's when the fear comes in. If we see ourselves as being static humans without anything else to give, that's where the fear of this AI takeover happens. Whereas if we see ourselves as individuals who can grow, who can develop, who can learn, that's when it becomes quite exciting. And I think one thing that we've got here in the chat from David, saying that AI is used as an umbrella term for multiple technologies. And also it's worth looking at, is it Gartner's AI hype cycle? Because actually some of these things may take a while to actually materialize, but it's not all going to happen tomorrow. But what we can start doing today is becoming these better humans, as you're saying, getting these soft skills developed so that when things do happen, we are feeling less threatened, and we're actually able to really harness being human and embracing AI at the same time.
It's, for me, the future of work and how we navigate it is about not just about adapting to change, but it's about how we shape it. So if we can leverage technology thoughtfully and embrace diversity, so because, and I'm making a huge assumption here, a lot of the people behind the technology might not be as culturally diverse as we would like, or are thinking about different perspectives. They may well be training it in ways. So how do we get on board that? And there's a lot of amazing stuff happening in New Zealand in the Māori tech space, where they're starting to really help share the stories and opportunities to really invest their knowledge and their ways of doing things with alongside technology. So that's fantastic. But the thing that will be the continuous thing is that humans we need to just stay true to ourselves and our strengths. And so how do we build the workplace where everyone can thrive and not see this thing happening to us, but how we can shape it? So it is a balancing act at the moment, but there's a real opportunity for us to really leverage what we've got to our at our fingertips, and really be, as I say, quite intentional in how we create workplaces that can really be innovative in the human space. So those are my musings.
Thank you so much for sharing your musings with us. I like that word intentional you've just said there. Intentional workspaces, intentional teams, intentional humans, intentional growth. These things are going to happen, whereas if we think about them and take stock and take some time to work out what is it that we want, how do we want to shape the future workspace and drive that forward. We don't have to be in the passenger seat. We can still be driving this forward, perhaps with technology becoming the GPS to some extent to help us not get too lost. But we can still be in the driving seat. We don't need to be a passenger whilst all of this changing, emerging tech and everything, it gets bigger and becomes more impactful in our working days. I'd like to thank everybody who's contributed. There's been quite a lot of chat, and I really appreciate that. John is also mentioning another worthwhile tool is the Human Skills Matrix from MIT. So that's something that perhaps people should look at. I do think it's interesting. I know a few people here who are on the chat, and there'll be people watching the recording. And I think all of us are in the business of human. All of us are there. And I think this is quite refreshing what you're saying, is that we're still needed. In fact, one would argue that we're needed more than ever to make this intentional transition into the next phase of work, whatever that may be. So I'd just like to say thank you so much. Is there any last words you would like to say? Any last moment of wisdom or a question or a bit of curiosity that you'd like to share before we say thank you and we leave everybody?
I just want to say I'm on a journey to find my authentic self, to teach that in my 5 and 7-year-old at the moment. We're all on this journey together. For me, my commitment for the remaining years I have left on this earth, to really just make sure I'm presenting this and always be curious. I can help others to all of this chaos that we've got around us, and just to really
I think we've
feels
lost you
quite
again,
hectic.
Candice.
So
No, who's going to talk first? I think I'm just going to sum this up by I'm just putting a couple of things on the screen here. David, thank you. So you're going to help us practice the art of being human. Thank you for sharing that. And I agree here very much, Lorraine. You are a fabulous human. Thank you so much for what you have shared. And very much from the heart, I think your authenticity is coming through loud and clear. Thank you for your curiosity. Thank you for sharing this with us. The recording hopefully will pick up on all of those pieces that we may have missed. So thank you so much. And we really, really look forward to catching up with you perhaps when technology is on our side. We'd lovely to have you back for a part 2. So thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. Have a wonderful morning. Have a lovely day. And we will catch up with you very, very soon. Thank you.